Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Data Protection Made Easy podcast. Today is the episode 8 of season 2, and I'm joined by Mark. Hi, Mark.
Yeah, I was back again there in quick succession.
Welcome back.
Only a couple of weeks on from my debut, and I'm on again next week. So
It's true.
I'm getting used to it over here, but I'll tell you what, that was a great session, wasn't it?
Did you like it? Yeah. What was your favourite topic then?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, we covered loads, didn't we? We covered the age verification. We again spoke about TikTok, online safety, and how we're going to balance that with privacy.
Absolutely.
And also balancing privacy and commercial interest as well. So yeah, it was really well rounded.
Yeah, I agree. We were a little scared in the beginning because there was so many news, and we thought, okay, this will be covered probably in 3 sessions, but we managed. I don't know how to do it in one single session, but definitely, I think favorite speaking is that the fact that AI now and all the social media platforms are currently now in the news. So It's really interesting to actually see and to debate a little bit about the risks, the potential design, the safeguards implemented, and actually the challenges that the platforms versus the individuals are facing, particularly now that when you listen to the actual episode, you realize the dilemma that we are facing currently between the commercial or the interest or even the legal duties versus the individual rights and their right for privacy, and the fact that, they are individuals and they have their own rights, right? It's just disturbing sometimes, isn't it?
We kind of traced it, didn't we, all the way back from the 14th century, where the privacy concern was peeping toms, and then we're moving on, towards like the 18th century, and we're looking at envelopes, we're looking at letters and so on, further on, 19th century photography, and of course 20th century, the computer age, and I suppose now 21st, it's AI and so on. So privacy's always been there. But of course, it's becoming more of a concern.
Absolutely.
We keep losing more and more of our privacy, and we need to get firm boundaries in place to say, no, we don't accept this, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely the tools is what is changing, isn't it? And the speed and the all is the over collection of information now.
Yes, massively.
Yeah, without further ado, we will leave it to the episode. I hope you like it, and happy Friday.
Enjoy, guys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. I am joined by Mark today. Kane is on annual leave. He'll be back next week, but he's definitely in a better place than we are. He's in Paris with his missus. Yeah, so he's having a better time than we are.
That's all right for some, isn't it? Yeah.
He's definitely sunny there. Not here. He's absolutely terrible. I'm a little bit depressed, actually. So just a couple of bits before we started. As we'll share the privacy notice in a couple of seconds to make the points about how we're processing your data. As you all know, the AI bots are not used, so we'll be taking them from all today's sessions to make sure that everyone has the best experience from this. If you do want to claim your CPA credits, please do. Miles as well will share with you the link to let you know how you do it. And today's session is on GDPR news. So thank you very much, Mark, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we were saying, loads were going on today in this last week, isn't it? Like in terms of news and stuff. So many things going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just as we've been sort of scoping out, points for discussion, we've probably got too many, haven't we? We've probably got enough for 2 or 3 podcasts. So, do our best.
Yes, we'll do our best to make it like short and sweet. But one thing that is good, at least, is more or less everything is connected with each other, isn't it? Like one news is connected to the other. Everyone, like very much AI related, children's or like social media. So it's good to have like definitely a good interlink.
Yeah, clear kind of themes emerge.
Absolutely. So we're making a point before we go to the news. We're making a point about the project that we are going to doing on the marketing research, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So obviously we've been undertaking this marketing project where we're looking at different marketing laws across the EU. And we were saying, weren't we, that it's quite remarkable really how many differences there are between nations, despite the fact, of course, it is all captured by EU GDPR and of course the Privacy Directive, but each nation has its own distinctive approach.
I've been lucky enough to do my own research about Germany. And Germany, I actually, very interesting points, actually. They do rely a lot of consent. They do defend that consent should be the prime lawful basis, because will provide actually the real choice to the individuals. They have an aspect that is really interesting, because they do not do the distinction between individual subscribers and corporate subscribers.
Yes.
So whereas we do, for example, one you can rely on legitimate interest for corporate one, and the other one on consent, they do treat all of them as subscribers, regardless if you are corporate or individual, and you should try to obtain as much as you can consent, or at least the real choice that I mentioned.
It's a standard.
Yeah, it's very high standards. Yeah, really interesting.
The work you did on Germany, I noticed that they had something called I think it was a double opt-in.
Double opt-in, yeah.
Which I felt was, very robust.
Very nice. So it's basically they do rely on, again, opt-in. You do opt-in, and then you receive an email confirming your opt-in.
That's right.
So you need to confirm again, like reconfirm what's your choice. But I was very interested on that. Loads of laws, so I was not aware. But they do have 19 data protection authorities within Germany, so they are split by federal state. Absolutely. Then different laws as well, but everything applied the same. But the data protection authorities actually was the thing that got my attention, because 19 in the same country is it's quite remarkable in terms of how many data protection authorities is within the actually EU, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, it's very interesting.
19 just in Germany.
I know. Which country did you have?
So I looked into Poland and Czech Republic.
Yes.
Again, I think Poland had quite a high standard, really, in terms of requiring consent. I don't believe they had anything in the way of a soft opt-in either.
Okay.
I suppose it is very robust. Slightly more relaxed than Poland. Czech, I noticed that it was quite fragmented in terms of they seem to have lots of different laws and regulations capturing different types of marketing. So again, that took some research. Yeah.
I think it's always interesting to do these type of researches, because it challenges, isn't it? Like,
absolutely,
we are used to do and to use the GDPR, the UK GDPR, and then the Data Protection Act, all of these UK laws. But when we are facing other legislations, other jurisdiction, we need to rely a lot of the information that is available online, and we need to always cross-reference and like looking for the best mechanisms and tools to use. I think is really, really nice. I'm enjoying this project a lot. It's actually Catarina that is leading the project. She's being brilliant. But yeah, a very, very good challenge. We are working all together, which is really nice as well. The consultants working all together.
It's been a real team.
Yeah, I like it. But without further ado, let's crack on with our news then. So you want to do a comment on the Information Commissioner, isn't it?
Yes, this was the first one that sort of popped on my radar. And this was really because, of course, we've had some of the recent DUA changes coming in relation to obviously SARS and complaints. And I think the last kind of phase of implementation is going to be those changes to the Information Commissioner, or Information Commission, as it's going to transition to. So, yeah, I noticed that Paul Arnold, the CEO of the ICO, as it is for the time being, has basically been speaking on this. I believe that the government is sort of going to flesh out some of the precise arrangements and dates and so on around that. So again, it's going to be a case, isn't it, of making sure you update all of your policies and so on to reflect that, of course, now it's the Information Commission. And I always find that was a great way of sussing out, quickly, without reviewing the full policy, whether or not it was up to date.
Yeah.
You could literally control an F and search for, EU. Or you can search for like 98.
Like giving a little tips now.
And I think this is going to be another one where, you're going to be able to type commissioner.
Yeah.
And obviously you'll know.
Just like find all, replace, done.
Yeah. So there we go. Easily done. But of course, I think we're all aware now of the change that's going to happen. Of course, it's moving from a corporation sole to a board governed body, which again mirrors other UK regulators like Ofcom and the CMA. So, of course, John Edwards is going to become the chair of the Information Commission, and I believe that there's actually going to be a new chair recruited at the end of the year once his tenure ends. And I think, in terms of what Paul Arnold was saying, of course, he'll be speaking out on that. Of course, it's going to give them, they believe, a more robust governance structure. It's going to help them in the transition period between obviously when one commissioner's tenure ends and another one begins. And of course, with this board, you're going to have obviously non-executive directors on there. I can't remember how many, half a dozen or so, I think. But they're obviously going to provide a wider range of perspectives to feed into the decision making, as opposed to just having the commissioner as the one figurehead.
I was about to mention that actually. I think a good point to kind of have from this change is the fact that now the weight will not be in one single individual, will be actually within like the board.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, of course, that so this obviously this change is it's kind of the strategic and the leadership, etc., will be moving to this board. Probably more stability, probably a little bit more I would say good points be raised, but there will be lots of minds here, which means that lots of like viewpoints.
Yeah.
Wondering if that will mean that the Information Commission will be stronger because there are more viewpoints that will be raised, or actually slow in their decision making because there are a lot of people that they have their own voices, you know. So I'm just wondering if
because of course, you know, the Information Commission as it stands, you know, they will consult with you know, those under them, I suppose. Whereas now, of course, you know, other directors and so on are obviously going to have much more of a say.
Of course.
Be able to really put their case across in terms of decisions. So I think, yeah, maybe it will slow things down. But again, you would hope that decisions are going to be better thought out.
Yeah, no, hopefully. But we don't need another an SEO slower than this already. So
I think it's a fair point.
yes.
You know, I think it does make sense as well to align with the models of the other regulators. I think it puts so much on the Information Commission to have all those powers and all those tasks. Whereas now, of course, by law, you obviously consultative process with a board.
And even for independence and the lack of conflict of interest, isn't it? Like they will definitely their argument because every single point of decision will rely on one single individual. The fact that these not longer exists, so the conflict of interest or the lack of independence or transparency, etc., will potentially not even be an argument now, because there are so many individuals now part of the decision making.
Yeah.
That probably that side of the story will be better, I would say, but. Well, fingers crossed that will not be slower.
Yeah, it should be greater accountability, shouldn't it? And I don't want to dwell on this too much longer. I think you know, we all know the changes that are forthcoming. You know, I am going to be putting an article together on this as well. That's hence me raising it at the start. I look forward to these extra details dropping, so we know exactly when we need to sort of obviously make the relevant changes and so on.
Absolutely.
But to move on to another, which I don't know if I could categorize it as a news story really, but basically I see that G have published what I think is a great blog article, and essentially what it consists of. I did send the link to Miles. I don't know if you'd be able to pull it up, Miles. No worries if not. I'm sure we can drop the link in the chat afterwards. But essentially what it is, it's a timeline of the evolution of data protection and privacy technology. And I thought it was brilliant. I mean, it's going all the way back to 1361. When England's Justices of the Peace Act came out, criminalising peeping toms and eavesdroppers. And it sort of jumps forward a little bit. You know, we jump to 1792 when the US Congress passed a law enforcing the privacy of letters. And then, of course, into the 19th century when obviously cameras became a thing, photography emerged, and that obviously prompted a lot of privacy concerns. There's the famous article by Warren and Brandeis, The Right to Privacy, which constantly comes up even to this day. And then, of course, moving into the 20th century, we've got like, you know, the UN Declaration of Human Rights establishing the right to privacy in 1948. And then right straight through, I suppose, to the modern day where we've got the GDPR and we've got obviously the emergence of smart technologies and so on. So I think it's a great it's a great thing to look at. And it sort of puts into perspective, I suppose, the evolution of privacy in response to technology.
I think it was quite interesting actually to see this table because normally the tendency to people is, oh no, this is only happening 2018 when the GDPR comes out. No, privacy actually and data protection already existed. It's just the tools that are actually different. It's just
Yes.
like the tools that in the mechanism that you use. So actually, I needed to see the concept of what it means, peeping Tom, because it was like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
I have no
yeah,
idea.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I just put in the Google, okay, peeping Tom, and I just made a point like. I think all of this, always these risks and the challenges always existed, but now the peeping Tom, if I got it right, is one person looking inside like the window, isn't it? Like just checking what is going on. Peeping Tom, like just checking.
Essentially, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it made me think of. I've got a guy who lives on my road. I think he's
yeah. It's
50.
just like just
It's one of
checking
those,
what is going
like he
on.
seems to know what's going on in everyone's
Yeah,
lives. And I get on great with him. I'm not criticising him. He's obviously an older guy, retired and stuff. He has a lot of time in his hands. But it's one of those, the twitchy blinds.
yeah, yeah. We do have
Maybe
the
we could
loads.
call him
Yeah,
Peeping Tom.
I love that. I we do have loads of actually in Portugal the old ladies that were well known within our young community because we always have, if you do go to Lisbon and you go to see the buildings, you will always see the old ladies looking in the window, checking exactly
Right.
what is
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
If there is anything else, they start screaming like, stop it. But I was about to say that at the time there was a peeping Tom that was one person, and now we do have our technologies and AI that actually process and
Yeah.
see what thousands and millions of people do. So actually, it's the tools that are changing, but this exists for ages.
Well, this is it because
Yeah.
when obviously studying my masters and studying the privacy law module, and like you're hearing like you know technology, talk about things like, printing press and so on.
Hmm.
Obviously, you don't really think about that technology. You think, computers
Yeah.
and all of that kind of thing. So, yeah, I suppose we can categorize those developments as technology in a sense, but I just think it puts it into perspective, that,
Hmm.
GDPR, it's not just, privacy, it's not just a recent thing that's just emerged, in the last
Yeah.
15 years. Obviously, it's always been a thing normatively, it's then become embodied in law. And now I suppose it's a case of, as technologies evolve and we're getting more and more different ways in which privacy is becoming a problem.
Absolutely. I think as well the real change maybe is actually the speed and the amount of data that is being collected throughout the years. Because
Yes.
back in the days, definitely it's something that is increasing, isn't it? Like, and now we are facing, as we will see, like thousands and millions of data, even over collection of data being constantly collected, even without people knowing. Even without people knowing.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's now the biggest challenge.
Yeah. This is another thing, I
Yeah.
suppose, thinking about it. Yeah. Obviously, you'd be fully aware, wouldn't you, of, back in
Of
the day, photographs and so on. It's obviously a very
Yeah.
obvious thing, but whereas now it's like, yeah, many people are not even aware of the data that's being collected, the abundance of it
Absolutely. And I think
every day.
that I think is a great link for one of the news that we're talking about, the meta glasses. So
Yes.
the one that you check, I'm not sure if you want to give just a kind of a quick summary about that, but
Yeah, no, of course.
yeah.
This was something that I sort of tagged on for the last appearance that I made on the GDPR radio session, just as a bit of an addendum, really. But I was surprised that there'd been further developments on it. Because I mean, my view on this is that it's just technology going too far.
Yes.
And I think we did sort of remark on that podcast about the potential for things to go wrong. Well, lo and behold, things have gone wrong with it.
Hmm.
Because apparently there was a couple of Swedish newspapers who've done an investigation into these glasses. It's basically found that the footage captured by them has been sent off to offshore contractors for like data labeling and analysis. And apparently, some employees of a Kenya-based contractor have come out and said that they were required to review and annotate, highly intimate, sensitive data from the glasses, and for use towards training Meta's AI, which, of course, as you can imagine, the data collected entails recordings of all manner of things that go on day-to-day life. People undressing, people using the toilet, and so on.
Hmm.
Um, Now, Meta's responded to this, just referring to its privacy notices and terms of service, saying that, of course, they reserve the right to perform, automated manual human reviews of AI interactions. I think the advocacy group NOYD has pointed out that, of course, the issue here is that once the material is fed into the system, the users lost control of how it's being used. And of course, from a European perspective,
Yeah.
it's not going to be compliant. I think you'd be looking at explicit consent, wouldn't you? But even then, there's still various issues.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think so many points to kind of bring here. So the first I would point out would be Meta actually is relying on the privacy notice, but actually in practice, I think now is trying to transpose this in practical terms, isn't it? So even with the ICO statement, so I would say first, with Meta relying on the privacy notice, are you actually expecting one to even the readers to read the privacy notice, that the users to use it, or even that the other people that actually are not using the Meta glasses, they are just being captured by the Meta glasses to read the Meta privacy notice? Is that acceptable?
Well, you were saying that, I think someone in the office has actually got a pair of these.
Yes.
And apparently you can't really tell the difference between them and just a normal pair of sunglasses.
Yeah. We actually, well, everyone, Mark is being more responsible than I will, because I will point out that he's actually Jasmine, as you all know. So Jasmine actually has a pair of glasses. She bought, actually, not, she didn't bought it. Actually, we offer them. Here she is. She actually, I got them before travels. And actually I've seen the glasses, and there is no distinction between a normal pair of Ray-Bans well, is it the Ray-Bans, not the Meta one, but the Ray-Bans, and actually a normal glasses, because the camera that they have are absolutely small. And I think, Jasmine, just correct me if I'm wrong, it's true that they have like a light that identifies when it's connected, yes or no, or actually when they are being used, but it's so small as well. I think it's a blue light that you cannot even see. So if I am crossing the road and she's actually using the glasses, how actually can you be able to say, yes, I am being informed that you are recording, but I cannot even see? Is that acceptable?
I mean, it brings my mind to if you see these kind of the vans that drive around with cameras on, to catch people out, maybe who are, speeding, maybe, or maybe they're on the phones while they're driving and so on. Of course, it's very obvious. That that's what that van is doing. But in this scenario, of course, you'd have no chance. And I suppose an ordinary citizen buying a pair of glasses, they're not becoming a data control.
It's not expected. It's not expected. And actually now picking up on the ICO statement, if they are making the point of now they got back to Meta to understand exactly how are they complying with their obligations under the GDPR, etc. And here are users clearly informed about how the data is being used in terms of international transfers because of these Kenya users, for example. What about relying on, for example, the vendor side of it? So the data is being collected, it is being stored and being used by these platforms. Is this acceptable? So now it's acceptable from the user side of it, having like a signal, like these blue lights informing the individuals that is being recorded, or at least voices and images being recorded, and that is enough to kind of fulfill the transparency principle. I'm not sure if that's accepted. I don't think it's sufficient.
I've said my opinion before that it's technology going too far. It sort of feeds, directly from the conclusion of this KPMG infograph, 'cause it's basically saying that our privacy looks to be being, sort of eroded constantly. By the year 2050, are we still going to have privacy? Probably it's going to mean something else. But I think it really pushes the message of we need to be setting in place firm boundaries every opportunity as to what we're not willing to accept. Another interesting story that came out was basically in relation to an NHS official who was basically found to have sort of lobbied for adding GP patient data to a platform built by Palantir, which I believe is like a US surveillance company that has a lot of contracts, in UK public sector, Ministry of Defence, and also recently with the NHS, which were acquired over the COVID period. So I suppose again, this is quite shocking, really. The idea of all of our sort of medical data being fed into this platform, and of course, it's ultimately controlled and operated by a company of whose intentions we're very wary to say the least. And it's like, we need to draw firm boundaries.
Absolutely. It's actually a very interesting article because not only because of this purpose, but as well yesterday, me and Jasmine and Vapavi, that is another data protection consultant here, we were discussing about like the pillars and the fundamentals of a society, being obviously health, one of them.
Yes.
And these being led by private companies is actually can raise trust issues, because I think health data is one of most sensitive data that we might have, and obviously companies might hold, which means that automatically any health provider, NHS and other private companies, whatever, they should be highly regulated, and any audits and stuff, and everything should be very strict on their sense. I'm not comfortable. I'm really not comfortable the fact that my data, health information, is being shared in such a large scale with these private companies.
Yes.
Without even knowing like the course of the interest, the reasons why,
Yes.
any purposes, and potentially even in their why the interests that will be probably in a confidential price. I don't know.
Exactly. I mean,
Just feel uncomfortable.
ultimately, it's a decision that's made for you by the government, isn't it?
Yes,
in this case,
absolutely.
Which is you don't really have much control over it. I did take a look at the sort of NHS sort of notice that it's published on this, and it does try and sort of emphasise that Palantir is the processor.
Mm-hmm.
It's only operating on our instructions and so on. It can't sort of, doesn't have the ability to go beyond our instructions
Okay.
in relation to the data. There's a lot of reassurances around security and so on, because I suppose what it is that, okay, privacy is fundamentally important, but of course there are other interests that, of course, we have to balance against privacy. We don't just want to absolutely optimize privacy at the expense of other objectives that we're pursuing. Of course, with this NHS case, it's the provision of healthcare. We want that to be efficient. We want it to be as good as it can be. But I suppose, again, it's this case of balancing and competing interests. And another great story, which I think taps into this point, is again in relation to TikTok, which
is always on the news, isn't it?
But I mean, they've basically made the somewhat controversial decision to not implement end-to-end encryption for their private messaging. And they are justifying this on the basis of preventing the spread of harmful content. Of course, they want to justify being able to access private messages so that they can obviously have oversight of any potential harmful content. Of course, that is taken away from user privacy, though, isn't it? So again, it's this balancing objectives. We want online safety. For that, I suppose maybe we want transparency, but obviously by having transparency, reducing privacy.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think as well. Again, feeling comfortable in here. Obviously, loads of news around the TikTok. I can see probably the Online Safety Act playing his ground here. I can see the fact that I don't know. The law is actually placing strong clauses and duties on platforms to prevent like the illegal and harmful content in here. They are using the encryption as obviously the argument to not implement them. But we do know other social media platforms that actually do have end-to-end encryption.
Yes.
We have the WhatsApp. We actually even have, I just double check for just for the reasons, the direct messages from Facebook, they are all encrypted. So I think the encryption in here, because the Online Safety Act will be applicable in the same level to all of this. I'm just wondering if they are just putting the problem in other things. They are just potentially looking to the legal duties and so saying no to this one based on other balance and interest they might have. Probably the other social media platforms, they actually do have the encryption. They are facing the risks of, okay, we do have the encryption, but we actually have the safeguards or any other tools or mechanisms that we can rely on to make sure that everything is under the law of the Online Safety Act. I don't know actually on how by design how things like this work, but surely they do have something in place to make sure that they are following the law as well.
I mean, you would expect so, wouldn't you? Although having said that, they have they're also challenging the huge fine that they received from the Irish DPC, a fine of 530 million euros, which again was linked to sort of violations relating to continuous transfer of personal data to China. I think TikTok trying to push back on this. They're trying to sort of make some arguments around the interpretations of Chinese law and trying to give some assurances as to security of their data practices. And I think they've actually estimated that, they believe that if they were to sort of comply with the DPC fully and do everything that they want them to do, it's going to cost them 5 billion euros to do it. So here's another kind of factor is that, okay, we believe that certain measures can be taken to safeguard privacy. Of course, in the business world, there's commercial side to this.
Of course.
How much is it going to cost?
Yeah,
as well,
of course. But they always come to a point and to the questions, understanding actually the fines efficient? Because in the end of the day, we are talking about these massive organizations where 5 million, 5 billions, etc. That obviously these are massive numbers for us.
Yes. Yes.
But actually, considering their profit, is actually are they effective? Are they relevant? Because the past couple of years, the TikTok is being constantly in the news, being fined and challenged by the regulators around the world, even the data protection authorities and any other type of regulators, and is still a problem. They are still not facing the justice, and they are still facing fines, and they are still ongoing. Nothing changed. So sometimes I wonder, is it effective? Because in the end of the day, if they still are fined, of course, with reputational damage, etc., but they are so strong within our society currently.
They are, yeah. They are.
That actually they don't lose anything. I'm sure that the children of users, and to be honest, I will include them kind of cynically here because I'm a user of TikTok, and I'm very aware of all these challenges, and I'm very aware of all these fines and all these problems, and I'm still using it, and I'm sure that everyone will face, okay, yes, they have problems with reputation, they've been fined several times, they do have problems with children's processing children's data. They even have the allegedly are being used to spy the U.S. government by China, etc., etc.
Well.
Exactly. So, but actually, they are useful for me to see some new recipes. I want to explore the world, and I need to use some sort of I don't know, social media to go to the best restaurant in Lisbon, and I'm going to TikTok because it's easier. So I think, unfortunately, users will think that way. It's easier.
Yeah, convenience.
It's convenient. So
convenience comes into it, and we sacrifice our privacy in the interests of
for convenience.
convenience.
Yeah.
But I suppose continuing on this theme of like where do we draw the line? Another sort of case in point, which kind of shows us the challenges that we've got, is basically there's been a 371 security and privacy academics from 29 countries basically signed a letter urging governments to halt the introduction of online age verification until significant privacy and security risks are addressed. So, of course, this speaks directly again to the theme of kind of online safety, protecting children online. So, I mean, this is another instance really where I suppose online safety and privacy is seeming to collide. Of course, we want to protect people, especially children online, but it seems like the means of doing this, as it stands, are going to entail, collection of vast amounts of personal data and sensitive data, in the form of biometrics. Because when we're talking age assurance, we're talking about live selfies and, government IDs.
Absolutely. In the end of the day, as we were mentioning, this is the end of the day, it's a dilemma, isn't it? It's a dilemma trying to understand, okay, we need to protect these individuals, but by doing it, we need to over collect the information to make sure that actually these individuals has, I don't know, the age they actually are declaring they have, and to make sure that they have the safeguards implemented. So I think that the problem here is actually provide with a real answer to this dilemma, because it is definitely a case by case assessment. Is definitely a thing that needs to be aligned with your risk assessment, your data protection impact assessment, and your privacy by design to make sure that you to answer to all these questions. But do they? Because in the end of the day, what is happening now, and as we saw, for example, with Reddit, is not enough. You on one hand you are answering, oh, I don't want to overshare, so therefore I'm using just a declaration of age as enough mechanism to age assurance, but that's not enough because people can just like people, I cannot, I can't read, so I just click, I'm over 13 years old, so I want to access Reddit. And not actually on that news, I'm sure that you have all seen the news, but Reddit has been fined by the ICO almost 15 million, obviously for children's privacy failures. They did not had any robust age assurance system, meaning it could not reliable identify users under 13. They did not had a lawful basis to process that information, and they failed to carry a PIA on this to assess the risks of the children for using the Reddit. And on that point, I've seen as well that there was a research of kind of a student as well, that they checked what Reddit was offering to these children under 13 years old in terms of content.
Right.
So they were scrolling to see, and two of the individuals actually wrote an article separately, but kind of the same outcome, that they were shocked.
Right.
They were absolutely shocked with the algorithm, with the type of content that actually is permissible in this type of social media, in the sense of girls actually very exposed in these social media environments, and kind of tips and bobs too that it should not be available to anyone actually, instead of just children. But yeah, it's very, very concerning. It's very
I mean, I
concerning.
think what stands out to me there is that Reddit haven't even done the basics, have they?
No.
They've not even identified a lawful basis. They've not done a DPIA. I suppose it's one thing, isn't it, talking about the age assurance and so on. But I think, scratching, you don't really have to scratch beneath the surface here to find out that Reddit actually, they haven't done the bread and butter.
But
Really.
I'm just wondering, we're talking about massive organizations here. And we are talking
Absolutely.
about like potentially a monopoly, like I don't know, you have Reddit, you have Twitters, we have Metas, we have everything.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
all of this are the ones actually that are constantly in the news for not to fail to comply with these basic principles, isn't it?
No, it's not setting a very good example, is it?
Absolutely
If
not.
the most well-resourced companies can't get the basics right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How can be set up exactly for the small organizations, because they think, okay, so actually these guys don't do anything. They maximally will be fined, which is fine for them based on the profit. So why shouldn't be as worry about that? Absolutely.
Exactly, because I think, and one interesting point just to round off on this was that I've seen what was mentioned in terms of a solution for age verification was like this kind of cryptographic system, which is something that I've sort of written about when I was doing my master's degree. This kind of like decentralized models of digital ID. It ties in with that. Yeah, I suppose, in a nutshell, it's just this idea of, people being able to prove claims, for example, about their age without, well, either by not having to share personal data or by, sharing like the bare minimum.
Okay.
But it seems that, technologically speaking, we're not there yet. And I think it will take some time as well, because chances are, even when we do sort of advance in that area, it's going to be quite slow from like a service point of view. So companies are going to be reluctant as well to move towards that kind of mechanism.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering as well if we cannot debate if it's commercially profitable. The fact that because I understand that the argument of it's not that easy or can be hard, or we are just complying with the law as much as we can, but we don't have the resources to do so, is a legitimate argument. I understand, but are we not talking about the over collection of information? Is it they're not using for marketing purposes? Because then we can see, for example, unsolicited marketing, for example, or actually, Charlotte, I could see that they are mentioning in terms of Reels and Instagram, they are coming of its over collection of data is actually being used for other purposes aside from the ones that was collected in the first instance. So actually, it's not profitable in the end of the day.
Well, we've got a great story on this as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
You want to feed back on
Which one are you talking about now? The Lloyd's one. No,
Bank.
go for it. You are the one finding it, so yeah, go for it.
It just this cropped up, and I mean, essentially, Lloyd's Bank is on this quest to kind of become the UK's largest fintech, shall we say? So obviously, it wants to sort of expand the use of financial technologies and so on. And I think as part of this sort of quest that it's on, it wants to reduce its costs substantially. And one of the ways that it's going to do this is actually by commercializing anonymized information from 28 million customers and selling it to third parties to kind of create an extra revenue stream beyond the traditional banking model.
Again, as I mentioned for the case of the NHS, I feel uncomfortable. I feel like
even though it's anonymized.
Yes, but first question that always come to my mind, because I do see that loads of times with customers and DPIAs. Oh, this is anonymized data, so it's not even the UK GDPR is not even applicable, is it? But actually, you are making a very good point. Is actual anonymized? So is it no way for me to identify this person by any other means? And you made a very good point that you've seen some study, wasn't it, about AI and the fact that AI can actually easier for them based on information that is made available online or made available to these platforms to identify someone from it.
Yeah.
So actually, it's debatable if it's actually anonymized data, isn't it?
Because if we do an anonymization process and we're thinking about, okay, a human being wouldn't be able to, re-identify the individual now. Yeah, what about AI? AI is way more capable of pulling from, hundreds of different sources. And it's quite accurate at doing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Now, the world that we're living now is just not just individuals that we need to worry about, is actually the platform. So now when we are talking about anonymization, essentially instead of just asking, is any individual able to identify this person? Is identifiable by any other means, any third parties, any platforms? That should be your questions from now on. As well as I made just some thoughts about it. Is AI platforms rely on normal, information that is made available to you, right? So I don't know. I feel uncomfortable with this anonymization because now Lloyd's is not even asking for permission to the people to actually for this transaction to happen.
Yeah.
So you are just being informed now by Mark and obviously by all the newspapers that is actually happening. But if you do have any account with the Lloyd's, I do have, for example. At least for now, I was not being informed by anything else aside from the news now and from Mark when told me about this, which I feel, I think I should have some control of my data, even if it's anonymized, making the point that is actually what is the level of security, and what if anything fails? What if actually anything happens in the middle term between the Lloyd's Bank and these third parties, and the anonymization fails because I can be discredited. I can have problems with, I don't know, my credit score or something like that. Even discriminated by my financial situation because they probably have all access to my historic data. So all things to think about.
It's interesting. It's like Lloyd's is trying to kind of outflank the competitors, using technology. And it's like, well, in actual fact, you've got to be careful with technology. Doesn't outflank you, So it's one to keep an eye on. But it was just the fact it was put out there as if it's just a normal thing now.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about, by the way.
Nothing to worry about. We are just like selling your data now to our third parties, to about hundreds of millions of people.
This is massive bank. This isn't some shady data broker or something that's doing it up down. Like, this is, one of the major UK banks,
absolutely,
banks, coming out there and saying, yeah, this is happening by for our commercial interests.
Yeah, I do remember when I came actually to live in UK, and you need to do the basic stuff as creating a bank account in the UK to be able to receive your salary. The Lloyd's Bank is the one that is recognized and recommended by any third party, by anyone is individual-wise. They have a massive impact on the trust of the individuals, the reputation in terms of image and reputation is great. So actually, this is a turning point for me because I'm not sure if I feel comfortable with this. I think they should have measures, even in process of anonymization. I think, and don't get me wrong, I know that permission and consent are different stuff, but I think in terms of like permission, they should at least make available this information. I think they probably are lacking a little bit of transparency in this.
Yeah, and I would have expected that you would already have known about it.
Yeah. Like I open the app, I should expect like a pop-up kind of thing, or bear in mind it is happening.
And I suppose the worry is other banks, let's say Lloyds do get, an advantage off this. Other banks are going to say, right, we need to follow suit now.
Yeah, because if they are doing this and it's fine, and actually they are having some profit on this, we need to carry on. And we need to do it.
And this is how our privacy is kind of eroding in a way, isn't it? Is that, trends are being set.
Yes.
These trends, maybe the more in the interests of, the commercial rather than the individual rights.
Because it's the banks is being shown to us that is no longer by processing financial information and giving financial bank information and providing bank services, is actually using for other purposes, and it's exactly what they're showing us by doing this. Before we go, I would just like to do one thing that actually made me a little unsettled. Google currently is facing a federal lawsuit after the family of a man in Florida alleged that its AI chatbot Google, so Gemini, encouraged them to take his own life. So this man, unfortunately, was 36 years old. So we are not talking about children. We are talking about a grown-up man that in October 2025, he was encouraged to commit suicide. And we had, before the podcast, we actually had some access to the quotes that were used for the lawsuit. and they were very, very troubling. So they caused me very uncomfortable, I would say, because it were things like, this is not the end, this is just the beginning. You are not by closing your eyes, you'll be finally meeting me by the end of this journey. This is just the start of the new beginning.
Really sinister, isn't it?
And he's very sinister. He's a very sinister. And I think that by the end of the lesson to be learning here is every single bit that we're talking about AI, and unfortunately stories that individuals and children took their own life because they were being encouraged by AI platforms to do so. Now is not children. We can probably say that these men may had some health conditions, some vulnerabilities, potentially feeling loneliness, depression. That can be debatable. But now the lawsuit, I think, that will answer the question that is, and we're talking before this podcast is, can the AI companies be held accountable by these responses? So we are talking about obviously the AI by design that all these platforms and governors, etc., they do need to make these platforms reliable and to make sure that they have the safeguards in place, and they probably gave them all these input and all this information, etc., and they design them to provide some answers. If the AI itself, the robots, go beyond this, should they be held accountable? Should they be?
This is the kind of black box conundrum, as it's often referred to, isn't it? Is that, it's not always possible to uncover the reason why AI has reached a certain outcome. So if it's not possible to explain the AI, how can you reasonably hold to account, potentially it's the developer, how can you hold them to account for outcomes that they couldn't reasonably have foreseen or known about?
It's very troubling, isn't it? Because in the end of the day, someone died. You have a family that fortunately has a broken heart because of it. You have a company that probably will show that actually we did everything you could, but then AI just have his own life now, and is something not this tangible. And you are absolutely right, Charlotte. You're making a point about people often hear vulnerable people, but usually they just mean children, and is actually anyone can be considered vulnerable, defining by case. But actually making that point interesting enough, because with the children, we can set at age as something like reliable. So we say 13 years old and that's it. You can access or you cannot access and that's it. But actually, how can you go beyond this? When this age is not a problem, how can you go beyond this threshold? So when you're talking about these type of situations, more people with certain health conditions that probably are not diagnosed, can we rely on algorithms? Can we rely on historic data?
Age assurance is the only mechanism in place. Well, they're going to pass.
Absolutely, they're going to pass it.
So, but that obviously doesn't mean that that they're safe to really be using this technology, especially unsupervised and without any restrictions.
I think it's something to think about. But we are over the time. I'm sorry for that. But thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mark. Really, I really liked this session. Thank you very much, all of you. I hope you see you next week. Next will be Mark and Kane about international transfers. So please stay tuned and have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you very much.